Have you ever lost a friend? Not because of betrayal, not because of distance, but simply because you wanted to prove you were right? I did. And it was one of the most painful lessons of my life. That day I realized a brutal truth. You can win an argument, but you will almost always lose something much more important: respect, trust, even love. And when I tell you this story, I don't just want you to listen. I want you to reflect, because I know you've been there too. Maybe you lost someone you cared about. Maybe you noticed people pulling away from you without saying why. In the modern world, where everyone shouts louder to be heard, where every social media feed is a battlefield of opinions, this lesson has become even more urgent. You might think being right makes you strong, but in reality, the ability to listen, to understand, and to connect makes you powerful beyond measure. I learned this the hard way, and I want to take you back to the moment it happened, because once you see what I saw, you'll never approach people the same way again. It happened on a quiet evening in a small coffee house. I remember the smell of roasted beans filling the air, the dim light reflecting off the polished wooden tables, and the calm chatter of strangers around us. But inside my mind, there was no calm. I sat across from a man I deeply respected, a colleague, a friend, someone I thought would be in my life for years to come. Yet that night, I wasn't focused on him. I was focused on me, on proving that I was right. The topic? It doesn't even matter now. It wasn't politics. It wasn't religion. It was something so small, so irrelevant, that looking back, I can't believe I allowed it to destroy what we had. But in that moment, it mattered to me more than his feelings. Every time he spoke, I interrupted. Every time he shared his view, I countered it with facts, statistics, examples. My voice grew louder, my arguments sharper. I could feel the thrill of victory building up inside me. I was winning. And then, suddenly, I noticed something. He stopped smiling. His hands tightened around the cup. His eyes shifted, no longer meeting mine. He was no longer engaged in a conversation. He was defending himself. He was shutting down. By the end of that night, the silence between us was louder than anything I had said. He walked away with a polite nod, but something had broken. Days passed, weeks passed, and the calls stopped. The meetings never came back. I had proven my point. But I had lost my friend. And in that hollow victory, I felt an emptiness I couldn't ignore. Why did this happen? Why did a small argument push away someone I valued so deeply? The answer is simple, but uncomfortable. People don't like being wrong. In fact, our brains are wired to protect our ego, the same way they protect our body. Just as you pull your hand back from fire, your mind pulls back when it feels attacked. When I interrupted my friend, when I raised my voice, when I bombarded him with facts, I wasn't proving my intelligence. I was attacking his identity. And when a person feels their identity under attack, they don't open their mind. They close it. This is called the ego defense mechanism. Psychologists have studied it for decades. The more you push, the more the other person resists. Not because your argument is weak, but because agreeing with you feels like losing a piece of themselves. Think about it. Have you ever been in a heated debate where the other person gave you undeniable evidence, but you still refused to admit they were right? You didn't resist because of logic. You resisted because of pride, because accepting their point felt like admitting you were less. That night, I triggered exactly that response in my friend. I thought I was winning. In reality, I was forcing him to choose between his pride and our friendship. And he chose pride, as anyone would. Here is the painful truth. In arguments, nobody truly wins. One side may leave with a sense of victory, but both sides leave with wounds. One's pride is bruised, the other's relationship is broken. That night taught me something I never forgot. It is useless to win arguments. Even when you succeed, you fail. People are not convinced by force. They are convinced by respect. When someone feels heard, when their opinion is valued, when their dignity stays intact, that is when they open their mind to you. Imagine this. Instead of arguing, I could have asked questions. Instead of interrupting, I could have listened. Instead of trying to defeat him, I could have shown curiosity about his point of view. Do you see the difference? In one case, I was a fighter and he was my opponent. In the other, I could have been his partner, his ally, someone who helped him feel significant. And significance is the deepest human need. More than money, more than success, more than comfort, every person craves to feel important. When you deny someone that feeling, you create resistance. When you give them that feeling, you create connection. The irony is this: when you stop trying to prove you're right, people begin to believe in you more. They trust you more. They like you more. That is the true influence. Not forcing, but attracting. Not dominating, but connecting. This is the secret most people miss. They spend their lives trying to win in conversations, but they lose in relationships. Yet those who focus on relationships, who focus on listening, end up winning everything else. So how do you apply this in your life? How do you avoid making the same mistake I did? Let me give you a few simple but powerful strategies. One, ask instead of argue. When someone makes a statement you disagree with, resist the urge to say, "That's wrong." Instead, ask, "That's interesting. Why do you see it that way?" Questions disarm. They invite rather than attack. 2, listen with intent. Most people don't actually listen. They wait for their turn to speak. Real listening means putting away the weapon of your next argument and focusing entirely on their words, their tone, their emotion. When people feel truly heard, half the conflict disappears on its own. 3, find points of agreement. Even in the most heated disagreement, there is always some part where you can genuinely say, "I see your point." Acknowledging common ground builds trust. It makes the other person feel respected, which lowers their defenses. 4, let them feel the wind. This may sound counterintuitive, but sometimes the smartest move is to let the other person walk away feeling like they won. In reality, what you win is something far greater: their goodwill, their respect, and often their willingness to listen to you later. 5, shift from proving to connecting. Before you speak, ask yourself, am I trying to prove I'm right, or am I trying to connect with this person? If it's the first, stop. If it's the second, proceed. Connection always leads to influence. Arguments rarely do. These steps aren't complicated, but they require humility. They require you to value relationships over ego, people over pride. And when you start practicing them, you'll notice a transformation. Conflicts shrink, bonds strengthen, and people begin to see you not just as intelligent, but as wise. So let me leave you with this. In life, you will face countless opportunities to prove you are right. But every time you do, ask yourself, is it worth the cost? Because you can win the battle of words, yet lose the war of relationships. The world is full of people desperate to be heard, desperate to feel important. If you can be the one who gives them that gift, the gift of significance, you will never lack friends, influence, or love. Remember this: arguments build walls, but listening builds bridges, and bridges take you farther than any wall ever could. I lost a friend that night, but you don't have to. You can choose differently. You can choose connection over conflict, empathy over ego, and respect over pride. Do this, and you will discover a power far greater than being right, the power of being remembered as someone who made others feel valued. My name is Dale Carnegie, and I believe that the greatest victory is not in winning arguments, but in winning hearts.